With build 25 out, and at the request of a friend, I'm going to build a character and gear a character straight from nothing. And just to show how the build process in Grim Dawn works. Now, I'm not the end-all be-all for Grim Dawn information, so I may get a tiny thing here or there wrong. And obviously there are different ways of going about gearing a character in this game, because there's just so much to this game that my word is not writ. But you know, I think I've shown enough Grim Dawn stuff to kind of know a little bit at least what I'm talking about. So I have this blank character here, Ward, and I think he has the same name on the Grim Dawn forums. So thank you, Ward, for going through all the trouble of leveling a character to 37 without spending points or learning skills. That's kind of a big deal. So, yeah, it's gonna be really easy to just slap all this gear on this character and then look at the skills that I can get up to 37. And, the build we're gonna be doing is, we're gonna be doing an Arcanist, predictably enough, with Panetti's replicating missile, because that's what my friend wanted to see. But first things first, I am going to do... Oh, what did I have? I think it was 15, 5... Ooh. I don't have Grim Calc open. Okay, we're actually gonna put all our... I remember more what it is here, through here, than the points. So, first things first. When leveling a character in Grim Dawn, you're going to get 3 points a level. And there's a three skill points. Attribute, just points. We'll just say points. You get 3 points a level you can spend on your class. And there's one very early quest that will give you a bonus point from Barnabas over there. Or no, Kasparov over there. And Barnabas is down there. And that will give you 108 points at 37 in total, and there's 9 points still outstanding for this character. So we're just gonna dive right in, and he's gonna be a full Arcanist, and obviously you have to go through the mastery process to get to your skills at the skills you want. Okay, so the masteries will give you physique, cunning, and spirit, and then health and energy, depending on what they are. So the Arcanist is mostly about spirit, and then cunning, and then physique, which is really kind of how you'd think they'd go. I believe I'm doing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 21. Yeah, I think it was 15. Yeah, this is what we're going to go with. So I'm going with that mostly to keep my stats up. And really, I think if I were going to do this as a real character, I'd probably avoid these two more than Spirit. But right now, we're just going to go with that. It was, I think I said 10, 5, 20. And you do get a bonus attribute point in the later parts of Act 2 for killing a harpy. So that was the attribute points. And really, these also, it's mostly put points in there for gear, put points in there for gear, then the rest in spirit in this case. Some builds, you're going to want to put points in physique for gear, then just dump everything in cunning, and then like spirit you can just forget. And then some builds, like you'll maybe want to mix cunning and spirit, and then just physique for gear. And I think it's pretty rare to have a character totally based around physique. But physique would be like your tanky stat. So anyways, we're going to do our skills here. And the first skill we're going to get is Panetti's replicating missile. And I'm just going to grab all 4 of these. Now, because this is going to be about the missile, we're going to want this at 12. Or 16. We're going to want this maxed out. Because it's all about dealing a lot of damage with the missile. Now, the other useful one here is this is supercharged, which we're going to want at 12 because of the 10% chance to stun for 1.5 seconds. Now, given the speed at which you actually do cast Panetti's replicating missile, you look at those nice build 25 animations. Because you're going to be throwing out a lot of Panetti's replicating missiles, you're actually going to stun a lot more than you think you're going to stun. And then the last thing we're going to build up a little bit is get this to 5, because it adds 2 fragments in. So we're going to have, it says 5 to 7 fragments. Really, that's going to be 7 to 9 fragments now. Distortion, the 20% chance to pass through enemies I think is fine for now. Once the level cap gets raised, for this particular build, I would actually consider building up Distortion a bit. But we're going to be using our remaining 24 points on some various and sundry abilities. First of which, we're going to grab all 3 for Escandras. We're going to put 1 point in both Myvans, 1 point in both of Reckless Powers. And we're going to put 1 point in Arcane Will. And those are our 1 point wonders. Now if I do, or no, they're not all our 1 point wonders yet, because what we're also going to do, because I don't want this to be just strictly, like the missiles are going to do great against crowds. I don't know if they're going to have the entire oomph we're going to need to just kill things quick. So I am actually going to put, because my friend also wanted to use the Sky Shards, I'm going to put 1 point in each of those. So, actually wait, I think I might have to respec something, but, oh, quality. Our remaining abilities we're going to dump the rest of our points in are going to be Mental Alacrity, Inner Focus, and Mere Varactes. Mere, I think, is going to be the low-end priority. I think this is going to be our main thing we're going to want built up. And actually, that's all of our points. Because with Mental Alacrity, it reduces the cost of the replicating missile and increases our attack speed. So, my next thing I would build up actually would be Inner Focus. And I think I'm actually going to drop Reckless Power and Ascendance and put more points in Inner Focus right now. So I did that real quick, and I'm putting points in the Inner Focus. Now, the reason I have these 1 point abilities scattered all over the place is because a lot of our gear is going to give us +1 to all Arcana skills and make all of these abilities better. So, for gearing, I'm going to go through the gear first and equip it, and then we're gonna look at how the damages work, and then I'll run out in the field and do show off the field work. Now, because we only have 230 physique, we actually can't equip a lot of, well, some of the stuff here. But luckily there are the components. In this case, one of the better ones, probably one of the best ones, is Ancient Armor Plate, because it adds total damage and physique and armor and a percent to your armor, in addition to having its completion bonus. So when we slap that on, we get 248. Another really good one is Mark of Mogdragon, and this doesn't add any like physique or cunning or anything, but it does give us movement speed and a good chunk of health regen. So Inscribed Bracers are flat elemental damage with percent elemental damage and casting speed. We're not using Kalidor's Tempest, but that's fine because the gloves are going to be very potent on their own. For shoulders, I'm going to say run Astral Mantle, but Mantle of the Weeping Eye would also be a good choice. The belt is going to be Frizzik's Utility Belt for its regen abilities. Our mark is going to be the Combat Medic's mark because of the physique and because of the regens, but also Field Medicine is a really solid chance to activate ability. That Aether Soul is for my Aether guy, so we're not actually going to be, I'm probably going to be removing that for something else. Now we got the physique for the chest, which is going to be Arcanist Ascended Vestment with a Hallowed Ground with +1 to all skills to Arcanist. I think I could probably do something better with that, but for now it's going to be it's just a good elemental damage bonus. Unfortunately, I'm not using nullification with this build, so that +1 to nullification isn't going to really do anything. So our rings, we're going to do a Lore Keeper's Band for +2 to inner focus, and the casting speed and energy regens. Put a Mark of Illusions in the ring because it's a good elemental damage boost. And I'm gonna put just a generic green Tempest ring in my other slot because it has tons of regen and bonus elemental damage. Now, I'm gonna use the 3 Myvan set pieces for the helm, the offhand, and the amulet. And I'll show why this is probably the best option for a Panetti's build, and then in a bit. And then for our a relic, we're gonna go with Haunt because it gives +1 to all Arcana skills, and as a completion bonus, it gives +2 to Panetti's replicating missile. And that ability does change depending on what your Haunt crafts up as. It could be Albrecht's Aether Ray, or Calidor's Tempest, or Reckless Power, or I think Nullification and Myvan Sphere. I think there's a lot of skills it can actually be. I think even Trojan Sky Shards is in there, and Devastation's in there. But for now, for this guy, Panetti's Replicating Missile is the obvious one to go with. And for his weapon, we're going to go with a Cortosian Invoker. The +2 to Distort is nice, but the +24% to elemental damage, the regen, and the casting speed is the real reason to go with that. So now that we've decked this guy out, his sheet DPS is going to be kind of low, but for now. But we're just going to be looking at what he can throw out. So, Mental Alacrity is at 13, which is going to be great for his casting speed and keeping the missiles cheap. His missiles are at 21 right now, which is pretty respectable for an ability. So he's going to be shooting 5 to 8. They're 5 to 8 fragments. It's 165 elemental damage. And it's obviously going to have +2 to 3 fragments added in. Distortion gets up to 6, which is going to give us a 38 chance to pass through enemies. And Supercharged is now 10.8% chance to stun. Trojan Sky Shards, Devastation's at 4, Arcane Will's at 4, Inner Focus is jumped up to 8, and then the 3 Iskandras and then our 2 defensive abilities are both at 4 each. Okay, I did one change, and that is I took a point out of Supercharged and I put it into Electra's Flash Freeze, because that is a really solid snare. So I'm going to set up my bar, and then I'll talk about the damages in a bit. Before I go into the actual damage types and what this character can do, I'm going to point out some components I'm using. The first of which, I did throw an Amber in his weapon. Less for, well, we're going to try Lightning Strike 2 out, but it's more because I wanted to throw in a bit of lightning damage and electrocute damage, because he seems to have a lot of that floating around. But the chest piece has Hallowed Ground, which, when you complete it, has a chance to give you +1 to all skills for 1 mastery. In this case, it's obviously Arcanist. The pants have Ancient Armor Plate, as I mentioned before. Your ring slots, I think Mark of Illusions is best for anyone using any sort of elemental damage that's very energy reliant, because it's a flat elemental damage bonus and regen. And its completion bonus will generally have a resistance, which is always handy to have. I don't have anything in his helmet right now, and there's a lot you can throw into the helm that is that you can go for, like resistances or raising up your physique and cunning or whatever, or physique, cunning, or spirit, or going for particular resistances, or both. For his amulet, he has a soul shard. Really, that should be an arcane lens. I did grab this off another character, but I do recommend arcane lens for the amulet. Offhand, I have him with a radiant gem because of its bonus elemental damage. But also, the Radiant Shield ability is not terrible. Not a terrible ability to be using. I don't have it on my bar because, I mean, this guy's only going to be played a little bit, but Radiant Shield's kind of a handy defensive ability. For the shoulders, I always recommend Mutated Scales because of the flat health bonus you get. That'll get chewed into whatever % health bonuses you have. The gloves, I went with Spellwoven Threads, mostly because of that tiny bit of casting speed to just increase his ability to throw out missiles. Boots are crafted, and really you could go with any sort of Adept's Greaves here. I just happen to have of Spell Weaving. Oh, and and Mark of Mogdragon or Mark of the Traveler are both legitimate choices there. And then I put in a Tuned Lodestone into his mark. And it gives you sort of a melee defensive reaction ability that is pretty handy for just dealing a chunk of lightning damage, which is also why I went with the Amber there, to just build that lightning damage up. And then Bristly Fur in the Physics Utility Belt for the bonus health and constitution. The cold damage is, it's not really what I would go for if I were really trying to get a particular Bristly Fur. But again, the belt, like the helmet, you can put a lot into your belt that gives you a lot of bonuses. Particularly, you're going to be looking for resistances, especially whatever your damage type is you're throwing out. You're generally going to want a resistance against it, in case you come up against reflective enemies. So a quick word on damages in this game. Your DPS listed here is the DPS of you swinging your weapon around. So he's going to be dealing about 751 damage with his weapon swings, is how I interpret that number. Even though it would probably be higher when he actually lands a hit. That is roughly how I interpret the average damage per second for this sheet DPS. In this game, your sheet DPS is not entirely a representation of what your character can do, especially if you're a spellcaster, because if you're a spellcaster, your weapon damage is not going to be accounted for a lot in your abilities. If you look at Panetti's Replicating Missile, nowhere in any of these abilities does it take into account your actual weapon damage. So whatever damage you deal with your swing is almost completely irrelevant when it comes to your missiles. So when you swing your weapon, whatever damages you have are going to be damages you have listed here are taken into account in that weapon swing. So when this guy swings his weapon, he's dealing 85 to 124 fire plus this percentage, 120 to 161 cold plus that percentage, 148 to 314 lightning plus that percentage. And all of the damages, flat damages, are taken into account for this. Now, when he casts his missiles, though, it takes all three of those percentages into account. The flat damages are not worked into Panetti's Replicating Missile at all. They are worked into, say, Albrecht's Aether Ray. If you have a point in disintegration, you'll add in, I think it's 10% weapon damage at its max. And then, like, Calidor's Tempest adds in, I think it's 30%. 30-ish% when you have it maxed out. So those would actually take into account your weapon damage. Does Devastation? Devastation does not. Neither does Trojan Sky Shards. So pretty much all of the abilities that this character has are not going to be based around his weapon damage at all, except when he actually swings and hits something with his weapon. Now, that being said, I am going to be using his weapon swing because it may actually not be that bad of an attack, and we're actually going to get to this when I go to a bounty, but for now we're just going to leave it at that. For his missiles, they deal elemental damage. Elemental damage is a combination of fire, cold, and lightning damage. In the case of this missile, it deals 165 elemental damage per missile, and that is 1/3 fire, 1/3 cold, 1/3 lightning. Whenever you have a piece of gear that provides flat elemental damage, in this case, like Myvin's Lens gives 2 to 8. Actually, let's see if there's just like a flat not range on something. I don't think there is. Okay, actually his gloves. That 6 elemental damage, when it's a flat number like that, that 6 is actually 2, 2, and 2 for fire, cold, and lightning. When you have percent elemental damage, and here's where it gets powerful, that 17% is added on to all 3 as a 17. It's not divided by 3. That may be a little confusing, but that does show you that elemental damage is fairly potent, and if you're gearing around it, you can actually get a lot of damage going when you have a lot of percent elemental damage. And in this guy's case, the reason I went with, like, say, Myvin's 3-piece is because it adds a lot of damages onto your attacks. Specifically, the percent lightning damage from the helmet, and the percent cold damage and flat cold damage from the offhand. But also the 3-piece has 22% elemental damage. And that just works great with the missiles. Interestingly enough, I have 88 Aether damage in there, and thanks to the way the missiles are set up, they actually deal Aether damage. So it's not a total loss to have Aether damage worked into this build. So every time he fires a missile, that 165, it's going to be divided amongst the fire, cold, and lightning, and each of those is going to be applied with this percentage. This flat damage is not going to matter for the actual missiles, because the missiles themselves deal that flat 165 damage. But it's going to be, the 3 damage types are going to be adjusted by these percentages, and any Aether damage added is going to be adjusted by that percentage. When you have something that deals percent weapon damage as an ability, it takes into account all of your damage, your flat damage types, and the percentages, as far as I know, on top of that. So when you have something that deals weapon damage, it's actually a good idea to have a lot of flat damages built up. But when you're gearing for a spell, it's better to gear on the percentage side of things. And I'm actually going to have a note on that when I do my Aether Ray in Build 25 update. But anyways, that is roughly how the elemental damages are going to work for this guy. So if I were making a character based around, strictly speaking, just lightning, what I would want to do is I would want to gear for lightning and gear for the percentage to lightning. So if I were gearing lightning, like say these boots, I would actually use them if I were going straight lightning, because it's 5 lightning, 15% lightning damage, and 50% elemental damage on top of that. And Myvin's hood would give flat lightning damage. And this wand would give 24% to my lightning damage, even though it says elemental. So gearing in Grim Dawn, you're generally going to want to gear around... You're going to want to look for whatever damage type your character is, stacking that damage type to build up your character's damage. And even if you don't end up with an epic in a slot, you should still go for something that's either a yellow or a green that gears towards that character. So these two are greens. I mean, I could find an epic chest piece, but it would actually be potentially worse than this chest piece for this character, in terms of what he can do with his damage and what he can do, with his abilities. So for this bounty, we're going to go into an easier area than what a 37 character could normally take, just so I can get used to this build a little bit. And then we'll maybe go into like Act 2 or 3, where something is a little higher level, just to mess around a little bit. So we're looking for a Ballier the Baker, and I think, because I've done this one before, I actually think he's in a cellar in Burwich. So yeah, as you can see, just through, I mean, we are in a low level area, but the missiles actually, you just throw them in a room and things are going to die in that room because, wait, I can't get it. That's not a room to go in. Never mind. Because the missiles replicate so much, this is going to be a great crowd clearing build. Even if the missiles are unpredictable, it's going to be great for just clearing rooms of enemies. So now, yeah, I'm going to swing my weapon at some things, and you can see that the damage is actually, like, around what your DPS says. if you'll indulge me. Yeah, that was like 511, I think. So we can run up and pop. I didn't even see the damage number. But yeah, that's when I say I say I think the DPS on your sheet is just strictly speaking your weapon attack. Where in the hell? Oh, it's on the outside. Compared to like the, you know, the 1200 that missile did. Now, keep in mind that the numbers you see for the missiles are going to be a little higher than what you'd see in like an endgame area, just because of the like lowness of the defense of the characters in here, the enemies in here. And I do have, you know, Trojans and Devastation as sort of additional bombs to use, because really the missiles, if I could on this build, I would actually want to maybe work in Albrecht's Aether Ray as single target damage, because it does have fire and Aether, and so it does actually mesh with your Panetti's abilities. That was a quick and easy bounty. Bounties are like 5,000 experience each, so they're not actually a bad way to level up a character. And yeah, when I did the respecking earlier, I did forget that I still have 9 points floating around. So with those 9 points, I would actually put 2 in Reckless Power and Ascendance, and I'd probably max out Inner Focus next, and maybe put extra points in Mir Varactes. Alright, Troll. Oh, don't tell me he's not going to be here and this isn't going to be a fun troll fight. I guess we don't get a... Oh, hello. So yeah. The Panetti's is working pretty well as an ability. I got hit there a bit, but it's okay. We're good. That was a dead body I was trying to kill there. So, one of the things I'd consider with this, I don't know if I'm going to edit in the statement from before in. Man, this actually sends, like, dead bodies, the bodies just, like, ragdolling in weird ways. But, for single target damage, I would actually consider Albrecht's Aether Ray, oddly enough, with this build, because anything that's single target, the replicating missiles aren't going to be as effective against. And honestly, I don't even think Trojans is needed in this build, but I would actually consider Albrecht's Aether Ray for this. For single target, it'd be great to be able to focus it in while the missiles can cut groups. And the damage types on Albrecht's Aether Ray do match up with your missiles. Yeah, so I got a little smacked around there, but came out all good. As a caster, it's never a good idea to get surrounded like that. So that was a... Oh, there was another hero in there. So that was a panic button hit the potion button moment. This is what I mean by single target damage is not as great with this ability. I mean, I still took her down, but yeah, I would definitely prefer, I think, the Aether Ray in that case. And I don't actually think Towards the Sky Shard is needed. Devastation is awesome with this, though. Oh, I should really see if that works. Okay, that's on that key. It's a weird keybind for that. So what we should do... Lightning Strike 2. Let's just see if I can hit something with it. I mean, it's good damage for a single target, but it's too much of a risk. It is fun when you're a mage and you can do that though. Sorry, I just love the wind up, just the giant wind up like hop attack and then smacking something in the face. And that was building a character in Grim Dawn, more or less. We went over the damages, how the damages worked, the difference between the flat damage and the percent damage, and we looked at the skills and supporting whatever your main skills are, and gearing based around those skills. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it at least a little bit informative. Again, special thanks to Ward, I think his name is in the Grim Dawn forum, for basically getting the blank character that I used to make this. And I'll have a link for that in the description below. And up next is going to be a really short video on Albrecht's Aether Ray in build 25. So, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys then.